Hi, you are unlimited friends and family. I am here with Kristen Upsepian, and she is going to walk us through past life regression, and hopefully we can dismiss any myths or fears that people have about that. And we're going to cover all that we can. So if you have any questions, please put it down in the chat box, and we will try to answer your questions and comments. And Kristen, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Joanne.
Would you like to tell people maybe a little bit, if they're maybe unaware of how a past life regression may go and what you would cover? How does that work, a past life regression?
So oftentimes when clients contact me, the first question, well, of course, they contact me with a lot of excitement, and they always tell me the books that they've read. And one of the books that's actually fairly popular is The Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Weiss. And they tell me how excited they are to experience past life, but there's also a lot of, fears and doubts and worries on what if I don't go in, what if I can't, what if it's too stressful, what if it's traumatic, how do I deal with those things? And I, of course, put my clients to ease to knowing that they are not alone when they do this, which is why one of the biggest concerns is when people try to do past life regression by themselves in a room by themselves alone, and there's no facilitator, there's no help. I've had several clients contact me, and they were, I don't want to call it traumatized, but I would say really stressed out because they went into a lifetime and there was no facilitator, there was no one there to guide them, they didn't know what to expect, and they felt, this tremendous emotions came up, and they did not know what to do with it, so they pulled themselves out of it, and that just caused a lot more frustration and fear and all that stuff. So the first thing I would tell people is don't try to do this by yourself. If you are interested in doing past life regression, find a facilitator, find someone that can guide you through that process and be there to support you when you are going through lifetimes that may be traumatic, that you may have experienced a lot of, pain and hardship and all that stuff. So that's one of them. And the second one, oftentimes my clients ask me is, am I going to only go to past lives? And I always tell my clients, no, that is not the case. For past life regression is not just going into past lives. Past life regression can be channeling, which is the higher self coming through and bringing forth information and wisdom to heal the present, or even to heal past stuff from the childhood and the present lifetime, or it can be past lives, or it can be in between lifetimes as energy. It could be future lifetimes. So there's many, many layers to past life regression therapy. And when you're doing it with a facilitator, the facilitator is there to guide you with questions and, to guide you through the process, even when if it does get tough, intense, and in a situation where, you're in the past life, there's always multiple different ways a person can experience that and not feel like they're trapped in the body and they have to go through that process.
Well, I have to agree because some people know that I actually did that with you, and it was a very interesting experience. And there were a couple times where it was really intense. And if you don't have the help and the facilitator there, I could see how you would get stuck. But the interesting thing after is that you're still reeling with or learning from or processing the information that you got from that past life experience. So I think that is really important. And I do want to stress that having a qualified, knowledgeable person with you is very important. But you touched on something about having different experiences based on a past life, maybe being in your in-between life or even future lives, which to me was like, wow, okay, I didn't even think of that. But time is not linear, so all that's possible. How does whatever life comes to us, how is that done, or is there a point to that being done? That particular life coming at that particular time?
Right. Oftentimes I let my clients know that when we go in first, number one thing to do is have intentions. There is no past life regression without intentions. But in addition to the intentions, I always let my clients know that your subconscious has so much wisdom and information within itself. It's like the higher self. And so within that information is everything, past, present, and future. And so based on our intentions, if the subconscious senses, or the superconscious actually senses, that there's information in the future lifetime or in a past lifetime or in between lifetimes that's going to help you clear, heal, understand, release, see the healing happen, it's going to take you there. So oftentimes my clients may have an intention for a past life or patterns or this or that, and they find themselves in a future lifetime finding clarity for that intention. So
how often does a future lifetime come into a past life regression session?
In the past 10 years that I've done past life regression, not too often. I would say out of maybe 1,000 cases, maybe 100 with a future life would come through. But one thing I can tell you, every single one of those individuals, none of them knew each other, and they all described similar situations, which to me was just mind-blowing.
Yeah. So when you do it, okay, so let's go back a minute. Let's go back to why somebody may come and see you, or somebody who does what you do. Why would somebody want to do that?
So a lot of times my clients, when they contact me and they're, they wanted to do past life regression, it's because there's certain patterns or people that show up in their lives that there's no answer, or there's no reason why that is. There's oftentimes, birthmarks that a client has that there's no, understanding of why that birthmark is there. Or birthmarks that appear later on in life, which happened to me. I actually have one on my right side of my body, which appeared later on in life. And as now studies show, that birthmarks are connected to past life experiences. And or any traumas, any fears, anything that is not explained why it's present in the current lifetime. I have clients who are terrified of flying, but they never had issues. Any traumatic, anything happened while they were flying. Or I have clients who are terrified of water, or they're just terrified just by looking at the ocean. They think, oh my God, if I go in there, I'm going to drown. But there's no reason, because in this lifetime, they never almost drowned. So those are one of the biggest reasons. And there's other things as well, like blockages that are not explained. And so many reasons why a past life regression could be ideal.
So when you're doing a past life regression with somebody and they go into a life, how does that heal, or what goes about that would be the healing part of that? How is that healing somebody?
Right. So the healing happens because our subconscious is filled with information and memories and stories. As long as we don't acknowledge, we don't face, it's just kind of in the back, just brewing constantly. It's just there. And while you may not consciously be aware of what is happening, subconsciously, it's constantly sending that information or messages or energy to the person. And then certain things happen in the current lifetime. It triggers things. It triggers negativity. It triggers fear. It triggers. And so that's one of the reasons. And the other reason is really, when I explain to my clients, I help them understand that everything from past, present to future is just energy. So it's energy that is trapped in your energy field. And so going into past lives and really finding the root of that, where that energy is trapped, what is happening in there, you're able to release it. And once you release it, and once you the first step again is facing it. And once you face it in that process, you release it, and energy begins to shift in your life. So many of my clients have continually told me, you can't believe how much my life started opening up after the past life regression. It's just like blocks have been removed. In a sense, I metaphorically say this, that if you try to get to the door and there's boxes before you, unless you remove the boxes, move them away, you can't really open the door. And that's kind of, in a sense, energetically what happens.
Right. I'm going to come back to that, but I was realizing that we kind of went forward quite a bit. Let's go back to the beginning.
Right.
There could be some people that are afraid, because when you do a past life regression, you're going under hypnosis. And so people may be a little bit on guard or nervous. Some people are actually afraid of doing that. Can you talk about that process and why that is not something to fear?
Absolutely. So I explain to my clients that hypnosis is meditation, meditation is hypnosis, and tapping into past lives, into the subconscious, is going through that process of meditation and hypnosis. really bypassing the beta mind, which is the logical ego, the 12% of the mind power, and tapping into the subconscious, which is 88% of the mind power. And all we're doing really, we do this process, we go through this process every single night. Before we fall asleep, we all go through the process of bypassing the beta and that gently kind of go into sleep, and you tapping into the subconscious, into the alpha theta levels. While in our sleep, we bypass the theta and into delta and then fall asleep. Really, in a past life regression, we just tap into the alpha and theta levels, which is where the intuition, the information, and the wisdom has been, is, and will continue to be. So hypnosis really, or meditation, is not anything different than what we do every single night before we go to bed, or when we go to bed.
So when you hear of cases where somebody gets somebody to quack like a duck or do strange things that they're not in control of, that's not something that we need to worry about when we're doing.
No, we don't, because this is not stage hypnosis. It's actually hypnotherapy, which you're right. I get asked those questions often by my clients. I can quack like a chicken, bark like a dog, and I say, no, this is not stage hypnosis. It's not entertainment. It's healing.
So one of the other things that I found very interesting is you were talking about when somebody can see a past life that can go through them very quickly. And some of your past life experiences as you're in this meditation or in this hypnosis or hypnagogic state, didn't say that right. So what would make the difference of the life that goes through quickly versus actually experiencing another life in a more lengthy period of time?
Right. And when it comes to the healing, there's not much of a difference. It just depends on the client's specific needs. I've had clients that tap into a lifetime and they go straight to that event where the trauma happened, or where what needs to be healed, saw it, experienced it, released it, went to the next lifetime, and the next, and the next, and the next. And I always in between ask my clients, are you prepared to move to the next lifetime, or is there anything else that you'd like to address? And I've had clients that stayed in one lifetime for 40 minutes because there was so much detail. There was so much memories from childhood. I've had clients that literally grew up in a past life experience where they saw their childhood and how events affected them, and then they became an adult, and your young adult, and an adult, and then went through the passing. So it just depends on the client, and it's not every lifetime that happens. Sometimes, again, one client can go through lifetimes very quickly, another client can slowly, or another client can do a combination of both.
What do you think is some of the biggest myths about past life regression?
The biggest one that clients tell me is, what if I get trapped in that lifetime? And I always tell them, that's not possible. That would be like us saying, what if I get trapped into my sleep? Every night we will go to sleep, and we know and trust that we're going to wake up in the morning and we're going to be fine. So it's impossible to get trapped in it, because it's just vibrational levels, and it's just tapping into your subconscious, which is the alpha, theta, and delta levels.
Which, you keep talking about, and it's really like, okay, so let's go back again, because you're talking about the different beta levels of our subconscious mind. And some people may not understand. I mean, we all hear about it, but they may not understand those levels and how each of those phases are very different in our thinking, in our healing, and in our progression.
Right. So basically, the way our mind works is the beta level is the lower vibration, if that's easier to understand, the lower vibration, at which time we're so in our heads, and it yaps away so much. It keeps you constantly in the negative, in the fear, in the fight and flight mode, in stress, in depression, and anxiety. That's the beta level, and it's constantly going, and it won't stop. But anytime before we fall asleep, we bypass that. Anytime we take control of our lives, we tap into the alpha, which is at the alpha state. A lot of times my clients think, get a meditative state, I have to have my eyes closed, I have to be in meditation state. And I tell them, absolutely not, because you can operate every day of your life from the alpha state, meaning the difference is you're awake, and you're really awake, not in a sense sleeping, in that darkness or in the fear or in the doubt. I call that sleeping. I call that, in a sense, being blinded by the ego, versus being awake and being in the alpha state. Challenges still do come into our lives, but the way you function through those is very different. So at the alpha state, when a challenge comes your way, you're in control of it. You receive the information peacefully. You don't go into chaos mode. You don't lose control. And that's what the beta really does. Because it's low vibration energy, it automatically goes to worst case scenario. Oh my God, it's the end of the world kind of thing. Well, at the alpha state, and that's the difference between the average individual that is not aware of the power they have within themselves versus the individual that is aware that they have the power within themselves, which is why meditation also is such a powerful tool technique to be used every day of our lives, because it allows you to tap more and more and more to your inner power and to deal with situations in a more peaceful way instead of a chaotic and loss of control way. So that's the difference. And it's just vibrational shifts. So the beta is very rapid. And once the mind is extremely rapid, the body becomes rapid, the heart rate becomes rapid, which is why a lot of times people would describe that as, I'm having anxiety.
Yeah.
When I really tap into it with hypnotherapy with my clients, most of them figure out that, oh, it's not anxiety at all. It's just what's happening in my head is happening in my body, it's happening to my heart, or what am I not listening to? Because we've not been taught to go within and tap into ourselves and to ask what is really happening in my energy field. We're always so quick to label ourselves, to judge ourselves, to diagnose ourselves with certain things. So that's basically what it is. And then at alpha, of course, the mind relaxes, the body relaxes, and while we're going through the progressive portion of the healing, when the mind and the body relaxes, you drift deeper, and the deeper is the theta state, which is where intuition, answers to important questions are found, which is where the floating happens, the vibrational shifts happen. A lot of my clients describe it as waves moving through them, warmth moving through them, spinning gently or rising up and expanding or rocking back and forth and side to side. Those are all ways to recognize that, oh, I am actually in my subconscious. I'm actually tapped in. This is actually happening. Because another thing that happens is a lot of times clients say, what if I don't go in? How do I know I'm in? And that's how I tell them, once you start experiencing these sensations, feelings, know that you're already in your subconscious. You're there.
So I know that a lot of people feel like they can't be hypnotized, or they can't go into that kind of state, that they really won't be able to achieve that. Is there some way that you can, make them feel at ease, that if you really do want to experience this, and if you really want to maybe, grow to another level, that this is a possibility?
Absolutely. And I always tell my clients, that's not possible, because every night you go to bed, do you not? Every night you go to sleep. So you go through that process anyways.
Yeah.
But again, when there's doubts, even, I've had clients that came out of it and said, was that really me? Or did I read a book? Or did I watch a movie? Or they start doubting themselves again. And I let them know, just trust yourself. Trust and believe. Those are the key points.
That's really important, because I know in life, that's one of the problems that we have all the time, is we doubt ourselves. We doubt whether we can, we doubt whether we're right. We doubt whether we really did that. So, and I know for me, I'm sure, I know that there was a portion of that with me as well, until I started really processing the experience and starting to put the applications into my life, or how it affected me. So I really appreciate that you said that, because we need to stop doing that in our lives. We need to stop doubting the things that we're doing, and believe that we really are here for a reason, and we're doing something that's beneficial and moving forward in life.
Absolutely.
So when you put somebody into a hypnotic state, if they feel like something is uncomfortable, or like if it's too much for them to deal with, how do you work with them in that? And could they come out of it?
Absolutely. So in the past life regression alone, when I see the client is having a discomfort, I do remind them, as I discuss in the conscious level as well, that there's 3 ways that you can experience the past lives in between lifetimes. One of the ways is being in the body. When it becomes too much or too challenging to be in the body, we can always float above and watch it from above or watch it on a screen. There's multiple layers and ways. And sometimes my clients go back and forth because they also want to have that experience in the body because it's just so much more, dramatic in a sense. So I found my clients go back and forth, and at one point they're like, I'm outside of it, I'm just watching the experience, and then they go back in and experience it, and then because it's all energy,
right.
And we have the power.
Right. And I know for me, in my experience, that happened where I was seeing something that I didn't want to do. And I really used the expression, F no, I'm not doing this, and rose above it. So even though you're under hypnosis and you feel like, you may not feel like you're in control, you really are, that
Absolutely.
you can use your intellect and be able to control that situation as well.
Right.
So it's not like I come to you, I go through the process, and I'm giving you all of my power.
Right. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I always tell my clients, this is your life. This is your energy. I'm just here to facilitate. I'm not here to control your energy. I'm not here to control your subconscious mind, which is seldomly clients, or not clients, but people would ask me, are you controlling the mind? And I said, no, I'm just guiding it. That's all I'm doing. Because it's at the end of the day, it's the person's willpower and free will, and you cannot interfere in it.
Well, it's funny because, in fact, I was just talking to a friend this morning about this subject, and because she actually had this done with somebody else years ago. And so when she went into it, she had this idea of, I want to know something. So she went in with this intention, right? And when I came to see you, I also had this intention of knowing something as well, and that never happened. But the things that were important and pertinent for me to move forward is what happened. So we can go with the intention, but it may not look like what we think it is, but it's still going to be important for our learning.
And that's when I tell my clients, let's go in with your intentions, because your conscious mind needs intentions to go to understand where is it, because again, it's free will. Where are you choosing to go? What are you choosing to address? What are you ready to address? But the most important part of that is you cannot force anything that is not meant to be. I always tell my clients, I've had even clients that came for a past life regression that turned into a hypnotherapy session or vice versa. And I told them, don't look for what you want, because the best thing is what you need.
Right.
And what you need may not be what you wanted.
So what would be the difference between, other than you have a purpose and an intention, what would make somebody see you for going under hypnosis for something versus going into a past life regression type of hypnosis?
Right. So anything that is an emotional obstacle, a block, trauma from this lifetime, from childhood, would be more so a hypnotherapy session. Past life regression is more so going beyond this lifetime to understand that, there's certain things in my life that there's no explanation. How can I understand why this is happening to me, or why this experience is in my energy field? So that's for past lives. But anything that's from the womb and into the present is more so a hypnotherapy experience, because you need to heal the present lifetime. And I've had clients that came for a past life regression. Like I said, it turned into a hypnosis session. Why? Because there was so much static, there was so much blockage in the current lifetime that those boxes needed to be removed before they could get to the door to go into past lives.
Right. Which is really important, that we're doing it in segments, not going to the end before we're ready to get there. Right. What were some of the greatest challenges and some of the greatest experiences that you've had in doing this work?
Right. The challenges were, I would say a handful of clients, I would say 3 or 4 clients in the past 10 years, where they would go into the lifetime and the fear would pull them out. And I always tell my clients, you will always walk away with healing. And so in those cases, I turned the past life regression session into a healing session, hypnotherapy session. And then they came back and they had a successful past life regression session. So always put my client's mind at ease, that no matter what, I'm not going to count you out, bring you out and say, well, I'm sorry, it didn't happen. Now you owe me the fee and you can go and on your merry way. It doesn't work that way. I always turn to a healing session. And that is why I explain to my clients clearly that I know this is what you're coming for, but just in case, I want to warn you that if there's a lot happening in the current lifetime, that must be healed. That must be cleared out of the way before you can tap into past lives. So that was, I would say, and I wouldn't call that challenge. It's just what the client needed in that moment. That's what I say it is. But then some of the greatest experiences that at least two that I can remember right now is one of my clients came in and she was this beautiful energy, this beautiful woman. And when she came to me, she was literally skin and bones. And she was saying, there's no physical reason why I can't eat. I've been to many doctors. There's no explanation, but I cannot eat. I can't hold food. I can't get myself to eat. And so we went into past lives, and one of the lifetimes she saw herself as a Nazi. And she was responsible of holding food away from, the victims. And I remember her, and I'm still getting chills, just how she was crying.
I got chills.
Yeah. And she was crying and begging and asking for forgiveness. And she was just explaining that if I didn't do that, I would have lost my life and my family. And it was just a forced situation. And after that one past life regression session, I've been in contact since. She's been to many of my workshops and retreats.
Wow.
And she looks perfectly normal now. And she said, I have not missed a meal.
Wow.
It was
Oh no, where'd you go?
I'm back.
You're back. I love live. You cannot never know what's going to happen.
Exactly. And another experience, well, there's so many, but this one in particular was a client who came in, and she too was dealing with a lot of things that she could not put her finger on it. She couldn't explain what it was. And when we tapped into the past life, she went into a lifetime where the language that she started speaking was ancient language. It did not sound like any language from the world that we know exists. And it was just this fascinating experience. And I just stayed quiet and held the space for her while she was communicating with others in this language. And in the end, she started crying, and my higher self said, just tell her all is forgiven, because I couldn't understand what she was saying. It was a completely different language.
Wow.
And when I said that to her, she just burst into tears, and she said, that's all I needed. And when she came out, she was telling me that in that lifetime, she had hurt many people. She was a warrior of some sort, and just apologizing to those souls for hurting them. And in that exact moment when she wanted their forgiveness, I came out and physically said, all is forgiven. And she was like, how did you know? I just went with my intuition of what I was being asked to say to you out loud, that all is forgiven.
Right. So really, you bring up a good point, because past life regression is very healing and helpful, but you have to believe in past life.
Right. Absolutely.
Because it does, we carry over from life to life lessons that we learned, or even unfinished business from past lives. So if you don't believe in that, if that's not something that you think is even logical or real, then this isn't going to, well, I don't know. Would you work with somebody who didn't really believe in that, or would you even have anybody see you based on that?
If they
I don't want to just put a blanket.
Yeah, honestly, I've turned some clients away in the past where there was too much anxiousness or fear about it. And I said, I will not have you go through this now. I'd like for you to, go and think about it and read more about it. Only do it when you're comfortable, because it's not about force. It's about allowing. So when my clients contact you, like when you contacted me, I knew right away. I was like, you're ready for this. You can do this. You don't even need a preparation session. You can go directly to the past lives. But sometimes clients are very excited to do it, but they're not confident in their own ability that they can do it. that's when I bring in a preparation session for
Mm-hmm.
clients. But I explain the whole process, and I tell them it's not required. It's just a recommendation. And my clients that have taken the prep session before the past life regression session, they all said, oh my God, I still needed that. I'm so grateful for that experience, because it prepared them to trust themselves and to
Yeah.
understand, how does my subconscious work? Is it
Mm-hmm.
visions? Is it feelings? Because all of our senses are heightened during that process.
Mm-hmm.
But majority of it, as a lot of my clients, say, how do I know? I say it's visions and feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But I have clients that smelled certain things, that tasted certain things, that, all the senses are heightened. So nothing is really blocked in that space. It's just wide in the open.
So what do you do in that first session? How are you preparing them?
So the prep session is somewhat like a hypnotherapy session.
Mm-hmm.
So they are not communicating with me. And a lot of times clients ask me, can you do past life regression reading for me? And I tell them I don't do that, because I'd rather for them to personally experience that, because the power that the personal experience brings, the reading will not bring. I could sit there and connect and intuitively write what I'm seeing, as a lot of times during the past life regression session, when a client is struggling with the situation, I'm shown the vision, I'm shown what is happening. One case in particular, one of my clients, she was feeling like she was on the ground, and her current best friend, which was her best friend in that lifetime, and they were soldiers, and they were both males. And just to say that people can change, from female to male, male to female in lifetimes. And she was like, why is my best friend choking me? And I could clearly see that her best friend was not choking her in that lifetime. He was just trying to stop the bleeding, because she had been hurt in the neck area, and she was like bleeding tremendously. And I could see the vision, but I was not about to tell her that, okay, he's trying to save your life, look what's happening. So I had her actually come out of the experience and watch the experience from above. And once she made that transition, she saw that all he was doing was trying to, hold the blood from her bleeding out.
You brought up two good points in that. And one I actually experienced with you, where I was in a life that I did not want to deal with. I did not want to see. And you did gently bring me to not walking away from it, but continuing to go forward. And a couple times I could tell that you had known before I got there what was going on. With that being said, you talked about people that, because there are people that will tell you experience this and this is why you're doing this. And I know there's two different ways of thinking about that being good or bad. Would there be a big change in somebody's actually moving forward by actually experience it? Or does it depend on the person's personality, on which way they would go? Why would somebody do one over the other?
Right. So I'm going to come back to the belief. If you truly believe the reading that someone else gave to you is exactly what it is, it can still shift your life and experience. But to me, that physically yourself experiencing it, because that is my entire focus in my practice, is to help my clients understand the power is within you. I choose to empower you. I don't want to be the one that takes control of your experience. I want you to take control of your experience. But experiencing it yourself is, at least to me, that's my belief, is 100 times better than having somebody else actually do that for you. And not to say that that's not a good option. I mean, some people that are afraid could definitely go with that option. And people who do that, I respect them and their work. But for me personally, I would say I'd rather experience it myself.
Is there ever a time, or have you experienced a time? I guess the reason I'm asking is, through my experience, there were two things that were like, one in particular that stayed with me, or still is with me. Is there ever a time where it could be too much for that person to handle at that time? Are we going to go back to your higher self has the wisdom to know that you can? And then what do you do if it's like that person is really struggling?
Right. So when the person is really struggling, I give them options. Again,
Mm-hmm.
options are always the most important way to go, instead
Mm-hmm.
of saying, no, don't know, stay there and do that. What if they're
Yes.
not ready to fully address that in
Mm-hmm.
that healing session? I've had
Mm.
clients that when it became too much, even
Mm-hmm.
outside of the body, we addressed it in a future passive regression, and they were able to kind of tackle it better than they
Mm-hmm.
were in the first time around.
Mm.
So it just depends on the client, on the experience, but I always make sure to ask my client, what do you choose to do? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
not about me telling you, no, go through it. You have to heal it. Maybe they're ready to heal it 60%
Yeah.
today and the other 40 next time. It's never to be forced.
Well, I think that really goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, is really know the person that you're working with, that they know what they're doing and they've been trained and you've had recommendations, and yeah, because you really want that process to go easy and gentle and loving, and
Absolutely.
yeah, because that could be scary. Yeah.
Absolutely. I always tell my clients, never with force, always with allowing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're ready to do some, it's great. If we're ready to do most, it's wonderful. Then if we're ready to do all, it's wonderful still.
Right.
Just
Right.
being
Well,
grateful for what we're ready to do.
what would be, I think, what would be your guidance? Because not everybody can come and see you, because a lot of people that are watching this are across the country. Some
Right.
are in another state like Canada, but we love you, Marilyn. But what are some of the guidelines for picking somebody to help you through this process? And with that, I'm going to caveat that I love doing compound sentences. Is this something that you could do online, or is this something that you need to be in person so you can actually be more in touch with what that person's experiencing?
Right. So the first guidance would be, find a facilitator that you really connect with, you
Mm-hmm.
really resonate with, and there's good rapport. That's
Mm-hmm.
one. The
Mm-hmm.
second layer is that absolutely, I've done workshops, I've done group passive regressions. And if I notice the last one that I did, one of the individuals went really deep into an experience. And while I had and asked everybody else to gently go through their process, I gently came forward to that individual that was having trouble. And I started
Mm-hmm.
whispering in their ear, guiding them through it while I
Mm-hmm.
was not disturbing anybody else's experience. So that has happened
Wow.
before.
Wow.
And honestly, I have not per se done passive regression on the phone, but I always do hypnotherapy sessions over the phone, because
Really?
passive regression, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Hypnotherapy can definitely be done over the phone. I've had clients from Jamaica, I've had clients from Canada, I've had clients everywhere, all around the nation, from New York to Washington
Uh-huh.
to anywhere and everywhere. Phone sessions can be done. It's just, for me, passive regression is so close to my heart, I want to say.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
that hypnotherapy isn't, and because it's such a specific, a gentle process, I'd
Mm-hmm.
rather for the individual to be in the room when they're doing
Mm-hmm.
it, whether it's group, because Dr. Weiss does group past lives all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
so many of people that have witnessed his work have come to me to actually, but while you do it in a group setting, it's different. When you
Mm-hmm.
do it individually, one-on-one, is completely different. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my clients have come from workshops that Dr. Weiss has done, group
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
they come to further their healing, which is
Mm-hmm.
more individual, personalized
Yeah.
healing.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. How often do you think that a past life regression should be done? Is there any kind of timeline or period of time you should wait?
Not at all. It just depends on my client's processing. I have
Mm-hmm.
clients who are psychics, intuitives, that come do passive regressions. I have one client that I've done maybe more than 30 passive regressions with her.
Mm-hmm.
I have other clients that they just do one, and one is enough, and then they
Mm-hmm.
continue with hypnotherapy because they have more knowledge and wisdom about what's going on with them, and they turn that wisdom into healing other areas of their life in the
Mm-hmm.
present. I have clients who, last week, one of my clients from 2 years ago that came back. Her
Mm-hmm.
first time around, she came. We had an beautiful experience, and then she was processing all that time. And then 2 weeks ago, she contacted me and she said, "I'm ready for my second one." She came in, and while we were doing her second past life regression, it was a completely different experience because number one, she has grown since then. So her experience was even deeper than the first time around, number one. And number two, she literally went through Kundalini awakening towards the end of her past life
Wow. Wow.
which was something very new to me. And that's why I tell my clients, don't have expectations. Come in with an open mind because you never know what needs to happen. What is needed is more important than what is wanted.
So again, what you're saying is to have the intention, but have your mind open to where it's going to go. Like for me, I had an intention, but the lives that came through when I walked away was like, how is this to my intention? But as I processed for the next week, I had my friends that I would basically filter through. It made more sense.
Absolutely.
So Susan, awesome Susan, who takes on so much in life, was wondering about past life regressions on Zoom, which again would go back to, that would be the same as a phone call, but what about a group past life? Again, that would be the same thing.
Right.
You wouldn't be able to handle monitoring everybody with a Zoom call.
When I'm not physically in the room, that's how I prefer it.
Yeah.
Because me, I'm there for every individual and not feeling, oh my God, you're going through that, but I can't reach you. I can't yell out and say, let's say, Christine, do that. You can't.
Everybody else will know what Christine's doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I could see how that wouldn't be that wouldn't work very well. Yeah.
Right.
So I know that not only past life regression that you do, though, you do other things as well. So if people wanted to work with you, you don't just do that. Do you want to talk about some of the other things that you do?
Absolutely. So besides the hypnotherapy, and because under the umbrella, I mean, all these tools, techniques that I work with come under the umbrella of really spiritual work. And spiritual work is not religious work at all, because sometimes people, mix the religion with, spirituality, but spiritual work means really empowering the self and going within. So under the umbrella of spirituality, I do hypnotherapy, I do past life regression therapy, I do life coaching, I do NLP, I do EFT, I do energy healing, which my energy healing sessions, as my clients know, is a combination of Reiki, combination of Qigong, meridian healing. So there's many, many layers. I do sound bath and sound healing in my sessions with my clients. So during a hypnotherapy session, multiple things can happen. NLP can happen during a hypnotherapy session. EFT can happen. Sound bath healing can happen. Energy healing can happen while the client is in a hypnotic state. So many layers, because over the years I've realized you cannot apply one tool to every individual and expect them to heal. So multiple tools, while one tool will come in 20% healing, bring 20% healing, another tool can come in and bring 70% healing. And to me, the goal is to get my clients to a state of mind, a state of a state where they're in control of their emotions and not feel like they're out of control.
Right, which is important. I'm going to go back to Susan because she was saying one-on-one. And Susan, I think I'll let you answer it. One-on-one Zoom is what she's asking about.
So one-on-one Zoom could work if I can physically see the person. Like if we can put the camera in a way where I can see the body language and what is happening. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll let, if you guys are interested in speaking with Christine, then go ahead and I'll put her information will be on this link. And then you can just contact her about that and ask, you could just go directly with any questions that you have with that. Because it would be interesting. I think it would be interesting. I had another question though, and I didn't want to forget hers. So I was going to tell you about the bowl thing. I really love that because when I've had experiences with bowls, but not like deep experiences with bowls. And I went to the Tucson Gem and Crystal show this year, and I came across this beautiful crystal bowl that was an alchemy with gold in it and everything. I sat down and started that bowl singing, and 3 times around shot me up into my higher self. I mean, it was the most amazing experience ever. So I don't know if maybe you could talk a little about that. I don't know if everybody here would even know about singing bowls.
Absolutely. And if you want, I can bring a couple of them forward to talk about them so people can see what they
Sure,
look like.
let's play.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, everybody, hold on. We're going to do a change here.
Yes.
A demonstration. Oh, I love the green one.
Yeah, so there are multiple different kinds of sound bath bowls. So
Mm-hmm.
this is one from Nepal. They're all handmade, and this
Mm-hmm.
one, when you basically what sound bath or sound bowls do, they're each programmed to a certain note.
Mm-hmm.
Which each of these notes resonate and connect with our chakras. So when you hit it, and you can see that it will keep going. Because its vibration is so strong, you can just hit it by the side and it just vibrates. And that vibration alone goes deep into your cells, and you can even, probably through the phone, because I'm feeling it right now, my cells are vibrating to the sound. So these bring about great healing. So sound bath alone is a powerful way of healing, and I combine this with hypnotherapy because it's all, again, at the end of the day, it's about the energy beginning to flow, and static being released, and blockages being released. So this is yet another tool, and I'll put that away, and I'll bring about this one. And this is a crystal quartz sound bath bowl, and this one, this is green because it's for the heart chakra. Look how powerful its sound is. And we can play it, and it will keep going, and it's very powerful.
We need better microphones, I think, for the...
Yeah, it's very strong.
If you've never experienced anybody listening to the bowl therapy, it's really a healing therapy. It really, really is. It can open you up. And so talk to them a little bit about, like, you have the green one for the heart chakra. There are different bowls for different chakras. Some are for more grounding. You know, talk a little bit about that, and also the difference between those bowls are singing bowls, but then you have your alchemy bowls, which are different.
Right. So there are many different types. I too myself continue to learn, and I just go with, when it comes to purchasing a sound bath bowl, for me it's about an intuitive connection. I've gone to many stores, seen many bowls. Mine, I ordered them online, but I went through pages and websites and you know, companies that offer them, and handmade and antique and this and that. At the end of the day, it came down to which one does my heart and soul connect with, even via the photo.
Right.
And that's how I chose my sound bowls, and I've always been happy with every single one of them. You don't always have to pick the one that is the most expensive to think that this is the best one. It's what works with your energy field, what works your space, what works for your healing purposes. And every single one of them are, again, tuned to a certain note, which I'm not a musician, so I don't really know. All I know is the heart center one is the F note, because I've been told, but they all connect to a certain note in the body, a G, a D, a B, a C, which musicians would understand that. And every single one of them is connected to a root or sacral, or, you know, the chakras, crown, third eye, any of those. And it's not even necessarily to go specifically, oh, this is for the root, this is for that. Sometimes I even in a hypnotherapy session, I just play this sound bowl, or my intuition would call me for another one. While we're playing this one, it may be for the root chakra, but at the end of the day, the client feels it in every one of their energy centers, because their entire vibration shifts and their energy shifts, and they, you know, amazing things happen, and they feel the flow happening throughout the entire body.
And that's basically what it's about. It's about that particular sound opening up the pathways, so you're putting all of your energy in alignment with each other. And that's the healing part of the singing bowls, for sure. Now, do you feel like, is there anything else about, like, okay, so past life regression is kind of a scary subject, I've noticed, to a lot of people. So let's go back to that, even though we've digressed.
Absolutely.
What do you think would be the main questions that people, are the main blocks or walls that people would kind of feel about entertaining past life regression?
You mean about doing it, making the choice to do
Feeling
it?
safe to do it, maybe even taking the step to do it.
Right. One of the biggest ones that I personally experienced 10 years ago was the religion aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm born and raised Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, my heart and soul was pulling me to study past life regression.
Mm-hmm.
But my head was saying, no, that's against our religion. And
I'm
so
going to
I myself freed myself from that limitation by just doing research and finding out that Christ himself spoke of past life regression. But he was, saying certain people were the reincarnation of this person and that person. And it was, I think, in 325 AD when it was removed from the Bible. So
it was around that time a lot of things were removed.
Exactly. Exactly. Because to me, it's pulled us away from the power we have within ourselves and placed people into fear. Because to me, when you realize that I could have been that wonderful person in the past or that awful person in the past, but being that awful person doesn't necessarily mean karmically I'm going to suffer in this lifetime. It could be, I myself saw one of my lifetimes was from Egypt, and it was so dark. It was literally, the vision I was seeing was when I opened my mouth to speak, just darkness came out of my mouth. While I looked at my own self in that lifetime and I said, that can't be me. I choose to heal and help people. But that was me, because my soul chose that experience. Exactly. But that doesn't necessarily mean from that lifetime I carried, to me, this what I do now, and I've done many of my lifetimes to help heal, is in a sense healing that lifetime. Because I was so dark in that lifetime, then I chose to heal and help to clear all that up. So to me, there's just so much beauty in it. There's so much power in it. And we're not always good in every lifetime, and we're not always bad in every lifetime.
Exactly. Well, I really believe that a part of that is because we're a soul here to have a lesson and learn and an experience to become a better soul. And so to do that, we have to have the polarities of the good and the bad. And so we've played all the parts. So we can never say anyone is better than anyone else, because we've all been there.
Absolutely. And even recognizing also that we don't always necessarily incarnate into the world all the time.
Right.
Other planets. I've had clients where they experienced other planets where there was absolutely no gravity. Everything was different. I mean, everything was functioning in a sense, an opposite way of the world, the way the world functions.
Yeah. That's a whole nother topic, but exactly. Yeah. So I do agree with you. I think religion is a big part of it. And that's something that, people have to be able to deal with themselves. Are there any other big obstacles that may keep people from doing that besides religion?
Fear.
Yeah. I hear you. Fear's a big word, man. It seems to follow everybody everywhere.
Exactly. And it's the false evidence that's appearing real in people's life. And I always say it's the opposite of love.
Exactly.
That's why in my book, I titled it Living Through Choice, Transform Fears to Love. And actually, I talk about past life regression in my book. So, yeah.
Well, it's true. And fear keeps us from a lot of things. But I think the answer for fear is education. Like you said, you educated yourself. And now look what you're doing. And it's because you understood. And, I've been on a rant for a while. People have known that I have, about understand history, understand where all this started from, and that it was based on fear. And that's what we have been living with for centuries, based on fear. And we don't have to live in that fear anymore. But if you're curious about it, there's some really good people out there that are teaching and talking about it. And it's not threatening, and you don't have to be afraid of it. Very good teachers. And I know Brian Weiss is a big person that works with past life. And his experience was amazing, because he didn't start out even thinking that he would do that.
Right. Right.
And he's
Absolutely.
working with it.
He was a psychotherapist, but he realized certain blocks cannot be removed.
Well, it all came from the experience he had with one client that came in, and there when his whole life changed
Yeah, yeah,
through one client.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been really into Edgar Casey lately. I've been doing a lot of Edgar Casey reading stuff. He's
Yeah,
also another interesting person.
right.
Is there anything else that you want to leave people with? Or any other topic in this that you want to, that you need, that later you're going to go, darn, why didn't I say that? I forgot. How come I didn't repeat or say this?
Yes. Well, one thing I'll say is
Mhm.
return to your child self. Be creative, be
Mhm.
childlike, have fun, enjoy. Whatever process it is that you want to go through spiritually awakening,
Mhm.
when you reconnect to that inner child self, it just,
Mhm.
it, everything shifts, changes,
Yeah.
because we've become too serious about life. We forgot how to laugh. We forgot how to, about 3 weeks ago, I took a yoga class with my daughter, and the yoga teacher came in and he sat down, and within 5 minutes to the class, he said, you know what's really interesting, that in the 70s when I was teaching, they would allow children into the classroom, and there was so much joy in the class.
Oh.
We did yoga. And then he's like, the moment they removed that rule and they said kids are not welcome anymore, he's like, all the joy went away. That's
Oh.
what I want to leave everybody today with. Just
Yeah.
really every single day, if you can find one thing to laugh about, one
Mhm.
thing to really smile about, one thing to feel childlike about, just
Mhm.
life is not that serious. We take it
Yeah.
too seriously.
We really do. We
Yeah,
really do. And I'm sure you see a lot of that because when people come to you, they're really trying to solve a problem. They're really trying to overcome something. And when you're in that state,
absolutely.
it can be very serious. But
Yeah,
you know, you're right. We got to find things to be grateful about too, grateful and joyful. And
mhm,
I go back to that. I always ask people when they say, well, what should I do? Well, what did you like to do when you were 5? What did
exactly.
you do when you were a young kid? What were your joys and your aspirations? I mean, not all of that is what we still like to do, but the core of who we were
Right.
was when we were 5 or 6 years
Yeah.
old. Yeah, I love it.
Honestly, when I've always been a child, like my dad, he's in his 70s and he still
Uh,
watches cartoons to go to bed, and my mom always laughs at him. She says, "You
oh
want
my God,
milk too with that?" So
I
I'm
love it.
very similar to my father. So
Uh-huh.
the one thing that where I find myself, I mean, to me,
Mhm.
theme parks are just magical. So I love spending time doing that, you know, as often as I can. But one
Yeah.
of the easiest ways was when my kids were a lot younger, I would take them to a park and I would start running before them and saying, who's going to get to the swing first?
Uh-huh.
I would get
Uh-huh.
on it and I would watch how other mothers would kind of give me the look like you're an adult and you're on the swing. That's for children. But, you know, honestly, I was like, I'm here to enjoy as much as my kids enjoy it. So I would stay on it as
Exactly.
long as I wanted.
I love it. We have to remember that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with us all. And I want to remind everybody that if you have any questions, to please put it in the chat box, and I will try to make sure those questions are answered. And I will also have all of your information in the chat box so they can get a hold of you if they want to ask you any questions or want to talk to you. And I appreciate everybody for participating in this conversation and for being here. I appreciate all of your time, and your time especially, for being with us today.
So much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for being here. And thank you for having me, my love.
All right. Thank you. All right. We're off. We're done. That was
Oh,
fun.
it's awesome.
I love the
Yeah, so much
impromptu
fun.
bowl thing.
Huh?
I love the impromptu bowl thing. That was funny.
Oh, I know, because I'm like, let's have some fun.
Hey,
Let's
can
not
you?
be
I
so
know
serious.
I did. I know I can get your book off the your web. I'll get your book off the website because I'll post that. I totally forgot. I meant to bring that up, and I would have totally forgotten
Okay,
that
my
if
love. No worries.
you had that.
Not
You
at
had that
all. It was
covered.
perfect just the way it was. No regrets. We're not going to go back and say, we should have said that.
I know, right?
If you want to say more, we can have another one, right?
Exactly.
We don't want to say everything in one.
That's right. I
We want to
love
have
it.
series of these.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, I will follow up with all the information on the Facebook page. I don't know. I'll friend you, and then you can see what everybody says too on there on my You Are Unlimited webpage. And thank you so much for your time. It was fun.
Thank you, my love. It was a pleasure to connect with you.
Okay.
Thank you for having me. And let's think of other ways that we can come together.
Yes, let's do. It was fun.
Because to me, and the next one might be about self-love, because a lot of people are struggling with that.
Yes.
So we can arrange something
Yes.
in the near future to talk about that, because people are really lost the sense of that.
And people don't really know. I think people think that they're doing self-love, but they don't really understand what it is. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. I'll pick a time and connect.
Thank
Bye.
you for having me.
Okay.
Have a great day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.